We have been looking at training systems since back about 1997, looking initially starting with the standard axe systems, and then also still looking at some of the old Dutch Splendor spindle. Penn State had developed many years ago a 4-wire trellis called the Penn State Low Hedgerow Trellis. We looked at that. We were looking at different responses on varieties, and so our first initial work was that, looking at different varieties. We were looking at Ginger Gold, Fuji, and Gala. Gala being more of a spur type, and Ginger Gold being the other end, being more of a droopy roan type. And so we're looking at those and see how they perform. And that was our initial investigation into training systems. And we had 4 training systems. We had the slender spindle, we had an axe system, which at 1997, that wasn't that long ago, but that was really cutting edge at that time. And then we looked at the 4-wire trellis, the lower trellis, and the third option, or fourth option, was what I called a V-axe, where we took an axe, instead of planting it 6 foot in a row, we put them 3 foot in a row, set one tree one way and one tree the other way, so that we were able to essentially plant them at 3 foot in a row and increase our tree density. The long and the short of all that, after many years, after 10 years, 15 years, was that either axe system, whether it was a traditional French axe or vertical axe at 6 feet by 12 feet, or whether it was the V-axe, where we had actually a third more trees, or 922 trees per acre, were actually the most productive. And which is not anything new. Now we know that that's the way it works. That those tall, slender spindle type, or tall, narrow canopies, seem to be the most productive systems that we can produce. One of the things we found, even though we put them at 3 feet, we found that a couple of things. One, that because we jammed them so close together, we got a lot more competition, and so we actually reduced the overall tree size. The problem was, by bending them out to the side, and as tight as they were, we got a lot of shading down in the lower portions of the tree, and consequently we did not get the fruit quality we wanted. So it was nice. In some years it did better, in some years it did worse than the axe. We also did a similar systems over here. Those of you who run IFTA tour, we were at Round Barn last night, and I worked with Brian Naus, and we had this on processing fruit. Because everybody's always looking at fresh market fruit, and say, well, what can we do there? And we tried to say, well, can we do processing fruit? Can we do high density? And the answer is yes, we can. It does work very well. We had Bruce Barrett type system called a high tech, which is nothing more than a Dutch slender spindle gone up 10 feet. We had an axe. We also have the V-axe as well. Again, the same problem. While we got better yields, the quality down the bottom was not as good. But we also had one other tree that system worked very well. It's what we call minimally pruned. And what this amounted to was we were very intense the first 2 years. We spread the limbs, we held them down, did all that, clothespin them and everything. Then thereafter, the only thing we ever pruned was to come through and take out very vertical, what we call sucker, rising straight up. Anything was broken or anything was hanging down the ground. So we did very little cutting. And in the end, that is actually the most productive system. Brian still has it out there. Well, we had dinner last night at the Round Barn. Across the street, there's a shed, implement shed, and behind that, those trees are still there. They're still very productive. That was York Imperial on Bud 9. So we could say that, yeah, you can do that with processing fruit. You can get good yields. On the minimally pruned, we were looking at consistently going up around 800 to 1,200 bushels the acre with a very minimal amount of pruning. It's pretty much a jungle, and the problem then is well, what's the fruit color like? Processing doesn't make a difference. We're not paying for fruit color. So, we thought that that's a very good production system. So this led to our second generation trellis, and that's what this handout starts with. And in it, we're looking at 2 varieties. Now we're looking again at fresh market. We're looking at Jana Gold, and we're looking at Daybreak Fuji. You can see the systems there, a tall spindle. Those of you who've heard from Terrence Robinson before know this is another type of an axe system, but where you're pulling everything down. It'd be similar. It's not quite like this. This is more of an axe system in here. We're not pulling them down, but we're doing that. We're looking at the axe system, which would be like this. We're looking at a tall trellis. One of the things we did when we had the 4-wire trellis was that I calculated, okay, I got so much canopy volume here. If I were to raise that canopy volume or increase that canopy volume, can I increase and get the same density of fruit? Can I get yields? And so we went in there, we did some calculations that yes, if we had a bigger canopy, a higher canopy, we could do that. So we put that in a tall trellis. And then we wanted to try this minimally pruned. It worked well on processing apples. We had very good yields, and so we decided we'd try it in a fresh market. I'm not going to bother you, but you can look at the yields. This is 2011 yields. Last year, like everybody in central Pennsylvania, we pretty much got wiped out, so we didn't get any yields on them. But you can see the yields. We were getting pretty good yields. This would have been the third cropping season, and you can see that the minimally pruned definitely, for at least for the John Gold, was considerably better.